Let's start with a quick review. You should be able to name all the pairs of congruent angles from what we did yesterday. So all the pairs, angle 3 is vertical to 1, so they match. And we also found that these two matched and these two matched yesterday. So angle 6 and 7 all have the same angle measure. And this is true with parallel lines only, and we'll be talking more about that soon. And because these are vertical, 3 and 1 and 6 and 7 are the same, then we can also say the same thing about 2 and 4 and 5 and 8. So they are congruent as well. Yesterday you spent some time defining these words, or whenever you did the last lesson, defining these words, adjacent, vertical, complementary, and supplementary, and we're just going to dig a little deeper into those meanings. So what is the type of angle, the angles that are side by side and share a common ray? Remember what a ray is. A ray has an end point and it goes in one direction for a long time. So if there are two angles that have a common side, they're side by side and they share a common ray, those are the adjacent angles. Adjacent angles. So which angles are across from one another? Vertical angles are across from one another. Vertical, I missed a C. Vertical angles are across from one another, and we found out yesterday that they are congruent. Congruent. We also found out the two angles that add to 90 are complementary angles. Complementary angles, and supplementary angles add to 180. So what you're doing today, part of your lesson is just naming them: vertical, adjacent, supplementary, complementary. So these two, the first one, they form a straight line. Or we can add 120 plus 60 is 180. So we know that they're supplementary. They're supplementary. And they also are right next to each other and form a straight line. So these two angles are also adjacent. So the answer to 1, you would put adjacent, supplementary, or you could put supplementary adjacent, but you do need both of them. Supplementary. 2, they're not next to each other. They don't share a common ray, but 30 plus 60 is 90, so they're complementary. So the answer to 2 is complementary. Remember to pause when you need to get the writing down. So 2, complementary. 3, we're talking about these two angles. They're not adjacent because they're not next to each other. 75 plus 75 is not 180 or 90. So the only way we can describe these are vertical. They're across one another. So 3, vertical. Please pause this and take a few seconds to do 4, 5, and 6 to double check yourself. All right, so for 4, these two add to 160 plus 40, add to 100, not 90. 60 plus 40 is 100. So they are not complementary or supplementary. They are not next to each other, and they don't share a common side. So these would be none. They're none of them. 5 are across from one another. They don't add, so they're vertical because they're across from one another. But 60 plus 60 is not 90 or 180, so they're not supplementary or complementary. These two are next to each other. Here's that common ray that they share. So they're adjacent. and they form a straight line. So we know they add to 180, so they're supplementary as well. And the last thing you're going to be expected to do today is find angle measures given the vocabulary. So we know that these two angles right here are supplementary. So we know they add to 180. So if one of them is 50, we have to subtract. 180 minus 50 is 130. So x is 130 degrees. Vertical angles we know are congruent. They're across from each other and they're congruent. So if this angle is 30, then this angle has to be 30 as well. So this x is 30 degrees. And 9, this forms a right angle. So since it forms a right angle, they're complementary. So they add to 90. So if one of them is 40, we have to find the remaining. So 90 minus 40 is 50. So this x is 50 degrees.